Hello and welcome to another episode of Into the Deep Project, which is a podcast where we go deep into the faith with guest speakers. Today I am so honoured and it's with great pleasure that I introduce our speaker. He is none other than Jacob Kiraz, number 2 at the Bulldogs. Amazing player, Lebanon international, and part of, as of the recording of this podcast, the table-topping NRL Bulldogs. Jacob, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and honoured to be here.
Yeah, no, honestly, we take a lot of pride in you in the Lebanese community for the character that you are demonstrating and just the way that you've been playing, particularly over the last few years. I mentioned, obviously, at the top, the table-topping Bulldogs. It's so phenomenal to see the way that we've come along over the last few years. Obviously, some dark days there over the last few years, but can you tell us a little bit about the whole evolution and how we got here?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Obviously, my first year coming to the Dogs in 22, I was a rookie. I was lucky enough to make my debut under Trent Barrett. And I remember I got an exemption to play, and then 3 rounds later, I remember he got sacked before I could play again because I had to wait till round 11 because I wasn't really signed to top 30. And I remember that year, you're just happy. I was just happy to play first grade. Like, you're not in a selfish way, but any rookie would tell you the same thing. Like, obviously you want to win, but you just want to make the team every week. Ever since you debut, you're like, every week team list comes out and you're like, okay, I'm playing again. You're kind of just happy to be there. So that year was, exciting for myself. But, as Dogs, obviously, that's probably been another year of just upset and stuff. And I remember the next year after that was 23, and that's when Ciro came in. And I remember he came in with all these systems and stuff. And I remember the first couple of months of learning all the defense systems, hardest thing ever. Like, you just got to honestly buy into it. And I remember I was quite a quick learner, so I learned it pretty quickly, especially for my position. And it's just now about everyone buying into it. And yeah, it was honestly, I remember that year, the preseason was one of the hardest preseasons I've ever had. And any of the boys would tell you that too, just because we're all learning. And there's some boys there. And yeah, that year obviously, wasn't the year we had. I remember the start was all right, and then it was probably one of the toughest years. I remember, one of the games we lost 66-0, one of the toughest days I've ever been part of. There's a couple games like that where and that was my second year, so I'm already done. I had my rookie year was done, so I was like, I wanted to win so bad, and it was killing me. I remember every week, losing, going to training, you're like, it's depressing, honestly. Like, everyone doesn't see that bit, but it's not like we want to lose, but it was just. There's players who weren't buying into it. Players complaining. It just wasn't the culture that Ciro wanted to bring. And I remember I had several conversations with Ciro at the time too. And we knew that. He asked me to I remember we lost one game. I sat in the bus and I was upset. Man, I used to never speak to anyone after the games. I used to be really upset. And I remember he came up to me and said, "Listen, I know what you're thinking now, but these times now, we'll look back at these times and smile about it." And what? I remember when he said that, it's hard to believe, you don't think where you could go, but I remember that moment there, and I was just, now every time this is now we see we're going good, I remember looking back at those moments. I remember him literally saying to me, the moments now that look how upset, look how we're going bad, we're going to look back and laugh at these moments. It's funny enough then. And then, then 24 come, out of nowhere, probably mid-year hit, we had that belief, everyone started believing, we bought some good signings, man, good hard workers, and they speak about it all the time about, that, and it's true. They don't look for talent. They don't care if you're the fanciest player, but they just want people who are good culture, good people off the field, and just work their ass off, man. And you can see that in literally all our signings that we got, and we had more signings this year, and so that's it then. And we just happen to be sitting up the top, which is good.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, honestly. And it's, I think a lot of people from outside might think, the Bulldogs, get over it. It's only 5 games. But, I mean, if you've been a passionate supporter and a player for such a long time, you see how much heartache we've been going through over the last few years. And it's more than just football. I think it brings the community together. So, God willing, we continue that way. It's phenomenal, I just want to touch on something you mentioned about the way that you used to feel after losing.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of commentators talking about the way that players, they're high-fiving opposition teams or they're smiling after a loss. And then I remember having a conversation with somebody around the Bulldogs at the beginning of last year, and he said to me they're finally understanding what winning starts on a Monday. And they're putting in the work from day one at the start of the week, and that really hit me when you said that, and it probably shows why you've been so successful over the last few years in the way that you've been playing, because you can see the way that you care. You take those extra runs, you take the hit-ups, and you clean up the work that some other players might not want to do. Ciro always talks about connection. What does that mean?
Yeah, connection's so big with us, man. Like, and you can probably see it. And we always say, Ciro always says, if there's people from China coming to watch the Bulldogs, like, what would they see? He always says that. And then we always say hard work, connection. Like, we got all these mottos, and it's crazy. And he's the number one, connection and culture. And it's true. Like, we actually, before the game, before we run out, we're all saying we love you to each other. And it's literally, like, I remember as a joke last year, we started saying, I love you, I love you. Now, every game, that's what we do. And now it's like a pact that we made. We discussed it. Like, when we say that, that means, like, you've got your back. Like, you do not let him down. Before the game, we're all saying we love you. We're just a very tight group, connected group. Like, there's no people in the team who's arrogant. There's no people in the team who doesn't want to do the hard work. Like you said, and it starts from Monday. Like, our training is intense. Our training is hard. And, like, now we've been here for a couple of years. It's normal for us. But yeah, when you first come to the club, it's a bit of a shock. But yeah, it starts from Monday. We are, Ciro is honestly one of the most detailed coaches I've ever had. And even when we're winning, trust me, that we go in the video room, we look at the negatives before anything, and then we celebrate the positive. But there's always stuff that obviously, you never where you want to be. You always want to be
complacent.
Exactly. You always want to be better, but it does start from training. And we honestly think that every time we train good and we have the best week of training, it shows on the game. And then we realize when we train bad, and it will come on the field. So it all starts from training.
Preparation.
100%. Yeah, number one.
Very important. A lot of people talk about that, actually. A lot of the greats of the game talk about how hard they used to train, or I hear a lot of commentators when they talk about some of the great players, they say they're the ones doing the extras at training, or, they're working hard at training. And maybe for us who don't really get into it or aren't really into it, we don't really understand it as much. I just want to touch on particularly, I saw you after the game on Sunday, and the game finished, and you knelt down on one knee and you did the sign of the cross. And I know that there's a really big connection between you and a lot of the players in relation to your faith. So I see, Stephen Crichton's got the cross on his arm, and he's a devout Christian himself. His dad's a pastor. Max King is a Christian, and you got Bailey Haywood and Bronson Cherry as well. Bronson comes to St. Charbel's and to St. Joseph's as well. So, and I know that Bailey Haywood's into his faith. How important has that been in amongst the group? Yeah,
it's obviously important, and it's good. I feel like it's growing, which is good. I feel like no one's afraid to show it anymore. Especially when you're younger, it's a bit harder, but. Yeah, it's so important, because that's literally our why. That's our reason that, he gave us his talent. Yes, we work hard, but he gave us his talent. Our whole purpose is for Jesus, literally. So yeah, every time, win or lose, before the game, you see, even before in the shed, you see someone like Kicks getting on his knees praying, and lots of us have our little things that we do just to spread the word and show our gratitude to God, because literally, like I said, win, lose or draw, we just pray, we get off the field healthy, and, everything happens for a reason. And yeah, we got a lot of boys like Max King, who's another one who's so strong in his faith. He even when I had that, rough little patch with, my injuries and stuff, even last year, he was big in terms of coming, remember, everything happens for a reason, just, and it's crazy. And honestly, just it's good to see that there's so many boys, who have their faith, and honestly, and the more people who see, the more people who aren't afraid to show it in a way. And I feel like I said, when I was younger, when I first got into grade, it wasn't really like that. And probably as well, because of the culture I walked into, you probably weren't. It was a bit different. And especially being young, I was kind of scared in a way to just be different. Now, I'm proud of it. I'm proud that I'm different. But now it's not really different, because we've got nearly our whole team. We've got all the Polynesian boys. They're all very, very holy. Critta's the one that grabs us at the end. We all get in a circle, no matter win, lose or draw, and we pray and just show grateful. Yeah.
Some people might think it's weird for me to say it, because obviously I'm in the, I'm really into my faith. But I think it's no coincidence that there's been such a change in the Bulldogs. And there's a leader like Stephen Crichton who is led by Christ. I always think to myself, if you want to see a great leader, look at who leads them.
100%.
You know, who is leading them. And particularly when you talk about men of faith that are great leaders, they know what it means to be a true leader, a true servant leader, because they're following Christ, who is the ultimate servant leader.
Yeah.
And I think it's been phenomenal to see somebody like Stephen Crichton, who gets the raps that he does. Oftentimes they don't really talk about his faith, but we know it, that
100%.
he's really deep into his faith. And I think that's been a quality that's really shown in his lead, even the way he talks to the referee, his presence on the field, his manner. He's such a humble guy, really big competitor, as you know,
100%.
but a really humble guy. And I think that would translate in amongst the entire group, which I think is phenomenal. So, yeah. I mentioned obviously the Bulldogs and the way that they've come back up to the top of the table, and they're doing much better than we have been for the last few years. I think if you were somebody new just following the Bulldogs, you'd probably miss a lot of the narrative that's happened over the last couple of years. And I think particularly for yourself, I mean, I read the other day that, you know, God willing, you might have an opportunity to play Origin, you know, which is, you know, if that's God's will, that would be a phenomenal, a phenomenal, I suppose, icing on the cake for what's been a pretty difficult journey for yourself, both personally and professionally. I want, if you can, just to go into how it all started for you, because I know it hasn't been an easy ride for you, and people see you as the amazing athlete that you are now, but there's obviously been a great story behind it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you know, it's been a bit of a different story. You know, but honestly, you know, I thank God every day that this my journey happened the way, because I don't think I would have been the person I am today, or the player I am today, without all these, you know, sacrifices I've had to make. So obviously, you know, I was always played when I was younger, juniors. I played for St. John's Eagles, my junior club, and, you know, always growing up, I was a 5'8" fullback, always. I've never played anywhere else. 5'8" fullback up until probably under 18s. I never made Harold Mats. I didn't get picked for Harold Mats. And, you know, as a young kid, I remember players from my team were getting picked, and I thought you had to get picked and play NRL, and it kind of hurt me at the time. I remember speaking to mum and dad, and, you know, and back then too, it's hard, even probably now, I don't know how it is, but it's very political, especially with the younger. Like, I was making development squads, but I never made Harold Mats. Got heartbroken, but mum and dad said, it's all right, it's only under 16s. Like, you know, it's nothing. I'm like, all right, easy. SG ball came. I trialled for Dogs. Obviously, I was Dogs Junior. I didn't make Dogs. This is under 18s. Didn't make Dogs. And then I remember I said, you know, I'm going to go trial for Dragons and Roosters. They invited me to trial for them, and I made both the teams. So I ended up choosing Dragons at the time, because I had a couple mates who went to Roosters. But then I remember just thinking in my head, you know what? Dragons weren't the strongest team back then. And, you know, I'm going to go there because I wanted to be by myself. Just, you know, I don't want any mates. Just get out of my comfort zone. So I get there, under 18s, SG ball playing. I remember going to Cogra, driving there from school, straight after, go all the way to Cogra Drive. And I remember I get there the first day, and I remember I trialled at fullback, and I actually done pretty well. And I remember I get there first day, and the coach like, all right, everyone, like, halves go here, backs go here. I remember I went in the halves, and the coach looked at me and said, you're not a half, go, you're playing centre. And I was just like, I've never played centre in my life. And then I was like, okay, easy. And then I remember my first couple games, get put into centres for SG Boy, and like I actually did pretty well. Like the first two games I did pretty well, and then they ended up shifting me in 5'8" when there was a couple of injuries. But I had a really successful SG Ball. Like, you know, I kind of just, I didn't want to, after I didn't get picked for Dogs, I actually didn't want to play anymore. I remember speaking to mum, and I said, I'm over it. I had a manager literally just at that time, and I said, I'm over it. I don't want to play. It's too political. I'm over it, because I knew I had the talent. I just, yeah, and for whatever reason it was, like, it is what it is. And like I said, I'm happy it happened, because after that, my mum said, just go play for fun. Go Dragons, just play for fun. And I remember I literally put in my head, just play for fun. Like, I didn't think anything of it. I actually did not at the time say, I hope I get. And then it wasn't until the second, third game that I had contract offers. But the offers weren't obviously NRL contract, but it was more just so, oh, wow, like, clubs actually see potential in me. And I was like, you know, I'll just keep going. And I remember that whole year did good. There was a couple of contract offers. You know, obviously Dragons wanted to re-sign me at the time, but like I said, these weren't NRL contract. Then Cowboys came, and then Cowboys said the last year, and I was 17 at the time, the last year, they'll give me an NRL contract. So training NRL would have been probably, at that time, I would have been turning 20 by the time I trained. So I remember thinking when it first happened, I'm like, no way. And he's like, but the recruit manager wants to come to Sydney to meet you. And I'm like, and this recruit manager is one that scouted Ponga. He scouted Jason Tamaloa. He scouted, you know, a couple pretty good players. So, in my head, I'm like, we'll just go see him. Mum's like, we'll go see him. Like, what's going to come out of it? Like, you're not going to go Townsville. Like, that's what we said. We go see him, and then he put the offer. And, at the time, I remember saying, this is who you're going to be playing with in your 21s if you play Hamiso Tabai, Jeremiah Nanai. Like, those were the players that, I was going to be playing with.
Was that Peter Mulholland?
No, his name was Clinton Zammit.
Oh, okay.
They called him Virus. So he was the one that, he got me up. So he came there, and I remember leaving the meeting. I'm like to mum and dad, I'm like, this is too good to turn. Like, no one's offered me an NRL. I'm going to go next year, and I remember I'm going to train with Cup reserve grade at 17, 18 years old. I said, you know what? I'm in Townsville. I'm out of Sydney. Sydney at the time, I had lots of mates. Not a bad thing. They were smoking a geely. That was kind of, like, it's just the Sydney, like, Lebanese typical. A geely, go leb feed, like lots of, it was what it was. And as soon as I finished school, that's what I was doing, I was going to smoke a geely with my mates, like out of house playing cards. So I said, the best thing for me, honestly, is go Townsville. Like, what's at Townsville? So if I'm at Townsville, there's nothing there. All I can do is just focus on footy. And I remember...
Were you the only leb there?
I was the only lev. I did not see any levs. And I remember I get there. I ended up signing the contract, and I remember I got there, and I started doing good in training with the reserve grade team. Aaron Payne was the coach at the time with the reserve grade team. I remember I had a couple trials for the Cup, and I'd done pretty good, and they said, we should trial you for NRL. And then I remember I struggled, man. Like, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, just going up there and just... I just turned 18. Literally, my birthday was right before I left, and then I remember... it was the biggest shock. Even my tata was like to my mum, how can you let him go and stuff? But then mum said it's his dream. Like, he wants to. I wanted to do it so bad. And then I remember every day there, I'll get on my knees. I remember at night, this like freaked me out in a way. I would pray to God, and like I'd literally be tearing because I was just homesick. I missed everyone. And I remember praying to God, and I remember saying like God, I don't know why this is, like, why I'm here. Like, I know why, but I said, I know that I'll look back at this day and I'll say, now I know why. And, now looking back, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because I remember every day I used to, like, do the rosary, and I used to literally, like, cry, and I just used to feel presence on me, and it was just, it was very touching. And, honestly, it was just, I remember just doing that every day, and that's what pushed me, and I knew there was a reason why I was there. And, like, at the time, like I've said, like, you don't think later down the track that good things will come because of it, but it made me, I lived on my own 17, 18. I was living with a mum who looked after players, and I had to take care of myself. I was doing stuff at a young age. I learned how to cook. I learned lots of stuff at a young age where, like, it honestly made me, the man I am today. And so I done that, and then COVID happened. So when COVID happened, I wasn't with the NRL squad, so all the other comps got, like, reserve grade got canned. So when that got canned, I remember the borders were shutting, and we were a bit worried. Mum and dad was worried. I was pretty worried. I was like I'm not playing. If I'm not playing, I'm going home, because my reason being there is to play. I'll go home. If I have to work, I'll work. And then I remember they didn't want me to go home, because I think they were worried if I go home, I'll stay. And then they tried to get me into the actual NRL bubble, but they couldn't. And I was a young kid, man. And then coach was ringing me at the time, who was, God rest his soul. It was Paul Green. He was ringing me, trying to convince me to stay. And I remember at the time, I just said, I'm going to go home. I'm not playing footy. And I said, okay, no worries. And then the recruitment manager actually left to go nights. So then he said to me, rang me, do you want to get closer to home? That's when I was back in Sydney, I was training by myself, and I was like, well, yeah, why? And then he's like, I'm going to nights. I want to get you, but we've got to obviously do it where, like, it's obviously not looking like he's just taking players. Short story, I ended up going to the night. He got me to the night. So went to Newcastle, lived on my own there. That's actually when I lived on my own. I remember, my dad would come up, stay with me here and then, which is the best. My brothers would come up here and then, stay with me. I had like an apartment. It was actually mad. Like, I had an apartment, and it was like on the water as well, like on the beach. So like, and for me, like, I don't live near the beach, man. Like, so I don't. I was like, this is mad. First couple of months, loved it.
Closest thing to water we've got is the Georges River.
I know. I loved it, bro. First couple of months walking down, thinking, this is mad. Have a drink of coffee near the beach, enjoying it. Then I got over it. Like, it was just, I'm not used to it, and it was hard being there because. Same thing, if the first preseason I done NRL was there, and I remember the likes of Ponga, like one of the freakish players I've ever seen. I done my full preseason. I signed the contract there 2 years, like top 30. So I remember I was 20 years old at the time, so done preseason. Didn't really do too good. My first preseason ever. I'll be honest, I didn't really do too good. I was small. I never knew how to expect it in a way. Next year comes, I remember I trained my ass off. So this was like the end of 21. Trained my ass off in off season. And worked so hard. Like, I remember training. I got back fit, strong. And this was leading into 22 season. And then I remember training. You just have a gut feeling that something's like, not right. And I remember like they were putting like younger players in front of me, and I was like a top 30. They're putting players who were development, which is, they just didn't see anything then, which, like I said, everything happens for a reason. And, I remember ringing my manager and said, listen, like, if you can get me out of here next year, do you reckon you can get me out of here? I'll go to another club. And then he's like, listen, like, the Dogs are interested in you now, but they don't have a top 30 spot. And I was a top 30 at nights. So I said, I don't care. As long as I'm training with NRL, train a trial, give me like just weeks with the NRL, I'll prove myself. And I remember I ended up leaving. I signed a contract with Dogs with 12-week train and trial. That was my contract. And I left the top 30 with Knights. I just signed a 12-week train and trial. I remember I said, okay, I've got 12 weeks to prove myself. And I remember even then, training 12 weeks, done really good. They were happy. I remember Gus saw me. I trained with them 12 weeks. And then after that, I remember they sent me back. It was funny. They sent me and a couple of boys back to part-time. So I was like, I had my doubts there, like the part-time. And then I remember I played 2-3 New South Wales Cup games. And then they said, no, you go back to full-time. Back you're training with NRL. And then that's where it all kicked off. A couple of rounds later, I made my debut. So it's freakish.
And here we are now.
Yeah,
potentially, God willing, Origin, hopefully.
Yeah, see what happens.
Well, look, selfishly, I don't want you to play Origin because then that means you're missing from my fantasy team. But, I know it'll be a great experience, yeah. You spoke about everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
What do you think that reason is that you went through all of what you did? Because there's a really great image that I have on my phone. It's like, our plan, it's like a linear straight line. And then it's God's plan, and it's like up and down, and then all these bumps and turns, and then you get to your destination. I kind of, when you were explaining that, I kind of saw that in my mind. Like, what do you think the reason is that you had to go through that?
It's probably just, like I said, just made me the person I am today. Just, maybe if I got everything handed to me, I would have probably, like, obviously I can't read the future, but I probably would have been maybe arrogant. Like, I trust God. Like, maybe, when everything's given to you, you don't really work hard for it in a way, I remember there was guns in our age group who, they're freaks. And then, and I ended up making it, which is obviously because I would assume I had to actually work so hard. Like, I had to try so hard. I had to work so hard. So I feel like if I made all these teams, maybe I would have got a big head. Maybe I would have think, I don't need to train. I remember I was going with my brothers at the park at 14, 15 years old, doing drills that I do now at first grade, just trying to ace stuff at a young age. And we laugh about it now because I remember speaking to my brothers saying, let's go park, we'll do footy. And they're like, no, play basketball. I remember speaking about it exactly to them. I'm like, see, like, help me. He's helped me. Like, they helped me. And that's why I think, honestly, it was more just so I worked so hard. And now that I'm in there, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And that's why I believe that's why a big reason why I do play the way I do. I play with my heart because I know, how hard I work for it. So, yeah. It's
very, I think it's a sign of great maturity that you're able to articulate that. Some people might not have seen it in that particular way. They might have been dirty on the world that they had to go through that, even though they got to where you've gotten to. And I think that's probably a great credit to your family.
100%.
Who are very humble people. I know I've met them at lunch that time, but and also to your faith as well. It's great that you're able to have that. I suppose you put that meaning from your faith into that journey for you. I think it's really biblical as well. You have a look at some of the greatest figures in the Bible, the great prophets, and even Jesus as well. I feel like whenever God wants to prepare somebody for something great or a great mission, he almost buries them in a way. It's like seeds, he buries you, and then you don't see the growth sometimes, and then you look back and you're like, 100%. The thing that was most difficult for me actually ended up being the biggest blessing for me. And we obviously follow our Lord, who went through the crucifixion, but without that, we don't experience the joy of resurrection. So, it's wonderful that you're able to articulate that, and it's great to see the fruits of that, the perseverance. And thank God. Like, I mean, how do you see, how important has family been for you in terms of that?
Yeah, big time. I say this every day. Everyone, whoever comes and credits me for being respectful and stuff, I thank my parents, honestly, mum and dad. I would not nowhere near be the person I am without them. They made sure we're always grounded as kids. But always be respectful. Our morals. That was so important to them. And I could say that they've raised us like very good, which is I'm very grateful for them. And they not only did I sacrifice leaving, they it would be hard for a parent. I was copping it, but I was at a young age you don't think of it, but when I look back, like, at the end of the phone call when I was calling mum crying, she's the one that's copping it too, you know what I mean? And that kind of broke me too. When you get older, you kind of think of that as well. And
of course,
they were sacrificing. Like, okay, I'm sacrificed, but their son's not at home, and that was the hardest thing. And not only at home, like getting the phone calls, especially me, you know, I was like crying on the phone, you know, 17, 18, I remember the first 2 days crying. I just didn't want to be there. And I said, what have I done? And, you know, thank God I done that, you know, honestly. Yeah, blessing in disguise. I look back at that time. I think if none of this happened, I didn't go there on my own. I don't think I would have been playing first grade. I don't think I would have been an NRL player, honestly.
And it's amazing. I can really see God through the story, especially with your mum, for example, telling you to persevere. Like sometimes maybe they might tell you, "Oh, just give up. Don't worry about it. You can think of something else." But it's amazing. Maybe the Holy Spirit was working through your mum to actually give you that bit of push to keep going, because you would have missed out on what you're experiencing now. What was it? What's been their example for you in the faith? I know you said, does your grandma live with you?
No, grandma doesn't.
Okay.
No.
All right. She's still...
So, yeah, grandma's still alive. Yeah, my mum's parents still alive, thank God. Dad's parents, passed away.
And what's been their example in terms of faith for you?
Yeah, I remember, you know, obviously every Sunday, Mum taking us to church, and you know, we go to Aussie church across the road from my primary school. That's where we go. But Mum said every Sunday we go to church as a family, and that's where we go every Sunday, 10 a.m. We go there. That's it. If we don't go 10, there's 5. You know, we always go, and then we'll go get a coffee with the whole family. Like that's Mum is always, you know, and when you're young, you know, I'll admit it. Like I just wanted to sleep. I didn't want to go. Mum made sure we're up. You know, sometimes, you know, my brothers don't even want to go sometimes, and Mum, like, you know, my brothers are old enough too, but Mum makes sure they go. We all go together. So yeah, like, you know, that was probably the number one thing, going to church, and it's an hour of your day, you know, that's the least we can do, you know. And yeah, Mum always makes sure that always spread my faith. You know, I've got this platform, and it's so true. You know, I wouldn't have been in this position without God. So this is, you know, there's lots of young kids looking up to me. So, you know, and even normal people. And, you know, if I could, you know, bring, you know, happiness to any of them, I'll do it in a heartbeat. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, very, very admirable. I think for me, the reason why I asked that question about the influence of your family, I think for us, particularly as Lebanese, or any culture where the faith and the culture are kind of intertwined, when we're growing up, it's so important for parents to encourage their children, and sometimes they have to take them, you know, even if they don't want to go to church, because through that they learn about the importance of going to Mass, they receive the graces from the Mass, etc., etc. But I think at a certain point, you go from being a boy to a man in your faith.
100%. Yeah.
And I think that comes through suffering. I think suffering is a great reason, and that can sort out people. I think either some people turn their back on the faith, and others start to understand the reason why they go to Mass and they get involved in their faith and they follow the teachings of the church. Is there a time in your life where that kind of clicked in your mind, where it all started to make sense, and where you moved away from, I'm going because it's part of my culture, it's something that we just do as a routine, to, if I don't have God in my life, I'm nothing?
Yeah, the main, I'd say the main one, honestly, where properly, I reckon, like, you know, always, like you said, you always go, your family's there, you know, you go, but when I actually turned to a man, I actually realised, you know, that I need God, like, you know, I'm nothing without God. I honestly believe it would have been probably when I moved away and I was on my own. And that's why, like I said, everything happens for a reason, because I got so close to my faith then because I had no one but God. Like, I didn't have family to speak to, like, you know, like, I was on the phone, so in my head I was just like I'm praying every night, and I'm praying, like, the thing is too, like, I was not forced to pray, but like I had no one to speak to, so I was speaking to God every night. And speaking to God, like in Sydney, before that I wouldn't have done that. Like, I would never like have conversations, I could sit there 30-40 minutes, just pray the whole time, and just because there was nothing for me to do. But that brought me closer, because eventually I knew, even when I got back, I just knew how important he was. And even though sometimes, I got complacent, and I did, you know, everything's going well, you forget. I remember I automatically bring my mind, no, look, don't only do it in the bad times, you do it in the good times. And that was the biggest work on, even when I got back, even when I made first grade. Like, yes, everyone prays when stuff's hitting the fan, you know, and my biggest one was, you know, when everything's going good, that's when you should be praying. And that was the biggest work on for me, because, you know, in the Townsville time, you know, everything was going bad, but I was going on the field and I was doing good. So it was like, you know, like, that was all glory to God. So it was like you know, like, yes, you're copping it, like, you know, you're sacrificing this, but it's coming back. And yeah, so that's probably the I reckon when I moved away was when I really felt like God, I actually like really felt God's presence like when I was praying. So
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing that you can have that perspective and, to see that blessing. I don't think you can fully understand the value or the meaning of suffering unless you have that relationship with God, because it really does turn what can seemingly be a difficult situation into something of a grace in your life, which I think you're a testament to. I think it would be remiss of us not to talk about the personal journey that you've gone through as well in your own family, that has kind of led you also in your faith to be where you are today. And that's to do with your brother, Joey.
Yeah, Joey. Yeah.
Who was diagnosed with leukemia a few years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was one of the toughest times of our lives. It was just one day he was just feeling fatigued for a couple of weeks. He was feeling really fatigued. Then I remember this was after I finished World Cup. So my brothers came World Cup with me to England. Mum came, and I remember he would have had it then, but obviously he didn't get tested then. Then we come back, and then he was feeling fatigued, and then he didn't want to go work. And then Mum thought he was just being lazy because like my brother was like that then. So Mum's like, oh, if you really don't want to go work, go get a blood test. Like, you're really that sick, go get a blood test. Mum's never ever said that. Like, honestly, like when you're sick, like you never go get a blood test. Like, you just rest at home. Goes, gets a blood test that night. I remember I was at training that night too, because this was in like pre-season. I remember pre-season. So I remember that night, Mum got a call from the local, and then they just said straight out to Mum, go to the hospital now, your son has leukemia, just like that. And then I remember at the time, they went to the hospital, and they said obviously they needed to confirm it at the hospital. And I remember I was coming back from training, and then I didn't know anything, and they're like, oh, Joey's sick, he's in the hospital. And then I'm like, yes, sweet. And then Dad was in the car, and Dad told me, and then it didn't really hit me, like you don't, it's hard, like when you're in that much shock, it doesn't hit you. And then we get to the hospital, and then they confirmed it. So then my taito came, taito was crying, Dad and Mum, like, all right, like I said, it didn't really hit anyone. Like, Mum was obviously crying, and it didn't hit me and my brothers. Like, we were speaking to Joey like normal. Like, he was there, it was just normal. He looked normal. So I remember saying, okay, that's it, I'm not going to train next day. Zach said, I'm not working next day. And Joey's like, no, work. Like, I'm all right. Like, go work, go train. I remember the next day I went to training, and then I remember we were doing some breathing exercise on the floor, and I just started, like, I don't know, that's it. I went off, like, cried, teared up so bad, man. And it was just hit me. Like, I was thinking about it. I was just thinking, like, he actually, like, he has cancer, like, he's leukemia. Like, it didn't hit me. And Ciro, our coach, came in and said, you're right. And I was like, this is what happened. He's like, oh, and they were shocked too, looking at their face. They sent me home. They said, go be with your brother. Credit to the club. They said, go be with your brother. Make sure he's all right. So then we were just hanging out in the hospital, and he was just, it was a tough journey. It was a big shock. You don't think it could happen to, one of your family members, but, like I said, it's made him a good person, a better person now. Everything happens for a reason, and obviously you don't want that to happen, but, it's all in God's, it's a journey.
What was your faith like at that time?
Yeah, my faith was pretty good, but that just, when stuff like that happens, it makes it go heaps better. Like, you think you can always be better, but I remember just being, Mum was at the hospital every day, sleeping on the couch right next to Joey. And I remember it got bad when Joey he had to stay there 30 days straight the first couple of days, first month, and then that was going into Christmas and stuff. And I remember that was when I was training, so I was only going training when I can. And I remember I'd go see Joey at hospital, Mum stayed there, we'll go get food, we'll hang out with Joey. And I remember he was on steroids, so it made him actually put on lots of weight. Like, he put on like a ridiculous amount of weight. And just looking at him, it was just like breaking you. And then I remember that pre-season leading in was the hardest thing. And I remember, and you know what, everything that I felt was nothing. Like, and it literally, like everything that I felt was nothing compared to what my brother was feeling. And I remember like feeling, I broke my back that season. I just put in my head, nothing's wrong with me. And I played with everything. And just because of my brother, like I said, whatever I'm feeling is nothing compared to what he was feeling. And that motivated me big time. And I remember, it was a shock. And obviously, thank God he's all good now. He's off tablets. He just finished so he finished his maintenance actually. So he's all done. He's in the gym, healthy.
Yeah, good.
So he's good, man. And obviously, he would appreciate, he appreciates it much more now. Like, you know, like he probably never went to the gym before. He never went, like, he was never active. He always wanted to be home, always in his bed.
Yeah.
So now, you know, he's out and about.
Yeah.
And thank God, man. So, yeah.
You know, there's a lot to take out of that story, but there's probably, because I know we spoke about mum and her influence when you were playing footy, but your mum sounds like a very devout and holy woman. I can tell that she's a woman of deep prayer, because you can see that God has been working, the Holy Spirit is working through her.
Yeah.
I think particularly in like you said, like she's never told, she would never say go and get a blood test, but you know, it seems as though the Holy Spirit was working through her at that time to give that message to your brother. So
it was hard, because I remember that's what broke me the most, like mum, and we wouldn't cry in front of Joey, because you got to you know, stay strong for him. And Dad used to speak to mum saying, like, I know, like, Dari, like, cry in front of me, cry, like trying, like, because in front of Joey or we like huddle me, and mum never did. But I remember like going into the room across, and then I remember mum said, oh, and this broke me. I remember mum said mum said
it's all right, take your time.
Nah, sorry, bro.
No, that's all right, take your time, man.
No, mum said, like, why does it have to happen to Joey? Like, like in a way that, like, she started crying, and she said that, you know, like, it's true. Like, and you think like this all the time. Like, even like it's just a normal thing. Like, Joey never touched nothing, good kid. Like, you just think why? And mum said that to me, and she just started crying, and it broke me. I remember that time I was full broken, and yeah, that's probably the time when, you know, I think mum just let it all out, and she was holy, but you can even see, like, even when you're holy, like, you still have these doubts, especially just as a natural reaction. And,
of course.
And then, you know, I was just trying to say, like, you know, everything happens for a reason. You know, it's you know, it's God's plan. You know, God will look after him, and yeah, it was a scary time, but yeah, like I said,
of course,
you know, thank God, it's he's all good,
on a human level, those things, you know, and it's not abnormal to ask it on a human level, you know, like why God, you know, and I think it's not a sin to ask why, for sure. It's you know, it's part of our human condition. We want to try and understand, but I think the key thing is that you never left. And that's, I think, the difference in the question of why. It's like, if it's a why that keeps coming closer, trying to understand. And then obviously I think it leads to an answer that God is always with us in that suffering as well. We're never alone. It's not a certainty that, you know, our suffering is going to be taken away, but it's that A, he's with us, and B, he can always transform that suffering into something redemptive, like he did with his son. We're coming, at the time we're recording this, we're coming up to Holy Week next week, and I just got the image of that scene from the Passion of the Christ where Jesus falls on the cross and he looks at his mother, and I think anyone that has seen that scene, you know, really, it's a very emotional scene where their faces look at each other, and then he says to his mum, I'm making all things new. You know, it's a very, very touching scene. I know there's a story about your mum with the rosary.
Yeah. Yeah, so you know, at the games and stuff, and you know, nearly every time really, mum's always has a rosary wrapped around her hand, and there's like marks on her hand as well from the actual rosary bead. So yeah, mum just does it every game. You know, obviously she's watching the game, and I think, you know, just keeps her at peace, because obviously my mum stresses big time when I'm playing, and it's a normal thing to do. You know, my whole family does, and you know, my partner does, and you know, the only thing that has got me on the field is God. So yeah, mum does that every game, and even when at home, she'll just have the rosary wrapped around her, and she's just holding it, and yeah, it's like I said, you know, my mum's an angel, and yeah, it's beautiful. So
yeah, it's very good to see you speaking like that about your mum particularly. Yeah, and I think that often, obviously, the father is, you know, we believe the father to be the head of the home, 100%. To lead in terms of the faith in that particular regard, but the mothers play such an important role. Their faith, their humility, and their love, you know. Like you said, your mum was sleeping overnight with your brother and wouldn't leave his side, you know. And I don't think, particularly as men, sometimes we think we've grown up, but we'll always be our mother's sons, you know. They'll never stop loving us in the way that they did when we were little children, you know. 100%. So, you know, God bless all the mothers, and, you know, particularly your mother as well, Jacob. Yeah. You speak a lot about, or you've spoken a lot about using the influence that you've been given as a platform. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it means everything to me, and you know, it's probably when I got a bit older, I started realizing it, how much I have an impact on actually people's lives. Like I didn't really, when you're younger, you don't really think anything of it. But, I get videos sent to me from, people that I know, and, there's, kids happy, seeing me, some kids crying, seeing me. The impact that, I do make, obviously helps a lot of people and just puts a smile on their faces. I remember especially after what happened with Joey, I remember I teamed up with the Kids with Cancer Foundation. I'm ambassador for them, so I hand care packages to them and their families. I do that. I'll try and do that when I can, honestly, and it's the best feeling ever, best thing I've ever done. And that was another thing. Ever since my brother got put in there, I remember next 2 weeks, I never look at my Instagram messages on DMs. I never look anything like that. And I remember looking at my quests for some reason. I remember seeing that they wanted to partner up with me. And this was like a couple of months after Joey was finished, like he was, and I was like, this is meant to be. Like, this is meant to be.
Did they know about your brother, or that was just random?
No, they knew about my brother because someone made a story, so they knew about my brother. They messaged, we love your story. We just want to see if you want to be on board with us. And I remember looking at mum, I said, this is like a no-brainer for me. Wow. And so every couple of months I try and go there, give care packages to kids and hug them. That breaks my heart too, just seeing these kids that are sick and young as well, and it makes me appreciate. And that's when it actually hit me, saying, there's a kid who's, and their families who would be going through the hardest thing right now, because obviously myself and my family understand, and I'm going to the kid and the kid's smiling, and it's just something so little, like it's not big for me to do, like and that's what. Like just to go to a hospital, give a kid a care package, and he's just smiling and so happy to see me. And he could have been having the worst day. He could have been having his needles. He could have been doing anything. And that's when it really impacted me, how much I actually can play a role in someone. So ever since then, I've just, whatever I can try and do to, help people. God's gave me this platform. He literally, I would not been here without him. And when I do stuff like that, it really makes my job like. It really makes me happy of what I do just because of that stuff. So, yeah, honestly.
Yeah, and I think it adds probably a deeper meaning to just being a footy player.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, because oftentimes, particularly maybe when you reach the pinnacle of your sporting career or maybe in fame or money or whatever it is, oftentimes people speak about getting to that goal that they wanted to achieve, and there's that emptiness. But I think if you can bring meaning to it, you always feel that drive and that motivation, I suppose, to keep doing what you're doing, because it's about something greater than yourself. And I can 100%. Tell really from the way that you speak, that you do have a mission in your football, which might sound odd to people who don't really understand the faith. That it's just about you carting a ball up and winning a grand final and things like that. But it feels like it's a bit more of a mission for you, which I think God's giving you those graces to get through it. From one challenge to another. You've obviously got some injury concerns. Obviously, out the first 4 weeks of the year. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been pretty tough. Last year, I was playing with a couple injuries, and just not knowing what was causing what. It was honestly the hardest thing, and it's hard because. People, I remember, and it was killing me. People at the end of the year were saying, "Oh, like you got nominated for Daily M, like oh, you've done good." And I remember speaking to my missus and my brothers and sisters, and I was like, I hate when people say that, because I know that I was every game was like, and it's hard to say, and it's a bit of a shock to everyone, but every game that year, maybe there was a couple of games where I was like, couldn't wait to be out there. Other games I just my body wouldn't. I was struggling to play. I was struggling to train. And it all happened from 2 years ago with that stress fracture that I had. So, honestly, the last 2 years has been pretty tough in that way. And like I said, and I honestly believe without my faith, I don't know what I would have done, honestly. And it got to that moment where it actually got really tough. And I actually believe that and I said this, and I remember speaking to Bailey about it the other day, and in Bronx, we were at dinner after a game, and I was saying, if I did not have faith, I actually don't know how we got through this. Like, and it was, no one sees that side of it. Obviously, everyone just sees you on the field. But no one sees the side that that was killing me. My only people who see is obviously my family. They're at home. They're the ones seeing me, like get angry, and it's hard because I was taking it out at home, and I try not to, but not getting angry at everyone, just not talking. Like people, they try and speak to me, and that's when I knew, okay, this is a problem. Like when I'm taking it out at home, and that's when like I said, I had to really lucky I had faith, and eventually just it's got. It started from the stress fracture, man, and then. And that was when Joey was sick. So that year, 23 year, my back was hurting, and like I said, I did not want to feel like in my head I felt nothing, but like I felt my back sore. And I remember at the end of the year, get scans, broken back, and missed the rest of the season. They were like, you would have been having this for ages, and I was like, yeah.
So you had a legit broken back,
Broken
not a
back.
Lebanese back.
Yeah, that's
like
how
a
it was.
proper.
Cyril was laughing about that. We were
Yeah.
laughing about it. He's actually got a Lebanese back. So that happens, and I broke my back, and I'm like, you know what, it's all right. You know, it is what it is. Rehab it, go preseason. I'll miss probably a bit of the preseason, and I'll be all right. And then I'll get back preseason, start training. I feel weird again, like because I remember that season, the back end, I had no power in my legs. I lost complete power, and I remember I wasn't the same person as I was at the start. Because the start I was doing good. That's when I think I was on top of, like nearly on top of like Daily M. Like I was doing really good that year. So I remember I lost all power on my legs, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, man. And I remember just doing recovery, being a professional, like that's it, you know. Like I didn't really stress about anything. I said, it's probably my first year of proper NRL. Just do what you could do. Found out I broke a back, so I'm like, okay, I would have played a part of my legs. Get back, got scans good, started running. I still feel this pain. I'm like, I don't know what this is. Speak to the physios. We're speaking about it. We'll get your back scanned again. Back says it's good. Don't know what's wrong. And then that was the worst thing, the unknown. And then physio said, okay, we'll modify you. Go 1 day training, 1 day off. Coming in, and I remember I was still feeling this way. Got a bit better. Started training. Round 1 comes, played, felt all right. Round 2 comes, felt bad, man. Like I remember after that, I rang Trav. I was like, bro, something's wrong, man. My body feels like nothing. And then I remember Trav's our high performance guy.
Yeah,
Trav said, okay, yeah. Travis said, okay, we'll speak about your load management. We'll manage you. We'll work out what it is. And I ended up getting sent to this lady. So I had a convo with Ciraldo, and he's like, okay, like you've seen what it is. Like, but your back scan's like good. I'm like, yeah, I know. And he's like, all right, well, I'll send you to this lady who I still see now. Her name's Kay McPherson. So she's osteopath. I see her, she treats me. So I'll go see her on my days off when I can. She treats me. I remember when I saw her, my back was a bit like, I had lots of imbalances happening.
Like scoliosis?
Kind of. I kind of did.
Yeah.
And anyway, my back happened, and it was the last year playing some games I wasn't going to play, and I remember I just forced him, like not forced him, I wanted to play, so I played. Anyway, the year was the year, and then the end of the year comes. I had the off season. I'm like, maybe I just need an off season rest. Had off season rest, and I remember that year getting injections in my back, and injections, my SIJs. Like I had so many injections, and just so I could play, and I wanted to because I wanted to play. I remember we get to off season, train, felt all right. Like it was,
As in the most recent off season.
The most recent. Yeah. I'm like, I feel all right. Like I feel better, but there's still something fishy about something. But I don't know what it was. But I knew I wasn't like back to the way. But I'm like, but maybe I just have to build into it. Like go preseason, you build your load in, build your running in, maybe that. And I remember getting to preseason, first 2 weeks flying, like fit, like very fit. And I was like, okay, like, and I remember when I was fit, the boys were like, oh, bro, you're fit. And I remember saying, like, in my head, I'm like, bro, I feel like something's bound to happen. Like, I just feel like I'm on one leg. Like, I still didn't feel right, but I was like, bro, it's all right. If I'm like this and I'm feeling like this, I don't care. It's nothing. It's better than what it was. And I remember in the most recent years, even before my back, I always had hip pain. But for me, like I said, I've always ignored lots of pain. And that's something that I've matured to, your body's not a robot. You can't play through everything because it catches up to you, and it did. And I remember my hip started hurting, and I remember they were speaking, when's your hip? Because I've had labrum tears from 3-4 years ago. So my hip, which is normal for rugby league players, I've had tears in both my hips, my right one the most. So then they were speaking to me about it, like, so your hip, and I remember training, I'd done something, and it just aggravated more. And then I'm like, no, my hip's hurting. But my hip was always hurting. But because my back wasn't hurting as much, it was my hip only. So I wasn't worried about my back. I was like, what's this, like hip pain only? So we end up finding, I'll get scans, and it's obviously the tear that happened, but obviously it is a lot worse. I've got a couple of things going on there, but it's not like dreadful. It's not like people were saying career ending. It's not career ending. Like, it's all right. I just needed to rehab it properly.
So what they were saying, that this could potentially end your career, is not correct?
No.
Oh, thank God.
No.
Because when I read that, and I think all the Bulldogs supporters, like it was all over the official Bulldogs pages. Jacob Kiraz could be like sidelined forever. Or like, oh,
we're laughing about it.
Yeah.
It's something that, I have to manage, but there's lots of players who have stuff that happen. Like, you got to manage. You got to be. If I'm a professional, 100%, I will. But then I worked out, and we all worked out that this hip thing was what broke my back in the first place. This hip injury, but because I've ignored it and I was aggravating it before games, stretching it, I was doing stuff that wasn't. So that was the hardest thing, and it was just the unknown. I remember it killed me, man. Pre-season doing that, and I remember still knowing my body wasn't where I wanted it to be, and I just knew something was up. But then, got injections in it, felt good, and now rehabbed it properly, feel good, and like it's still there, but nowhere near as bad. And now it feels like I'm, if anything, every game I play will feel stronger, because I've learned how to manage it. But that's killed me. Last year, it killed me just, playing through like the stuff I had, and it just, but thank God. And that's another thing that, I probably, my faith got stronger, because the only person I had was Jesus. I was like, every game, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with my body. I couldn't work it out, and at the time I didn't open my mouth to it as much. I couldn't say, my hip's hurting, it was just my back I was really focused on. So it was a big test for my faith, and so, something so little, but I'm happy now. I'm back playing again. Obviously, I was spewing. I was missing the first rounds, but I'm glad I did, because now I've worked out how to manage my body now, and it's probably set me up for the next 10 years of my career. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, it's really, I feel like your story is just, there's so many hurdles that just come in front of you, and the way that you're handling it is really, it's very inspiring actually, because oftentimes. Sometimes you think, oh, okay, I've suffered off now. Now I've made it and we're doing well. Let's stay up the top of the hill. It kind of reminds me of the Transfiguration, where Jesus is at the top of the mountain with Moses and Elijah and Peter. And Peter says, let's stay up here and, enjoy the glory that we have. And Jesus says to him, no, we've got to go down. And that led to Peter obviously being crucified upside down and things. So I attribute kind of that story a little bit to the transfiguration that we often have in our lives, that sometimes we want to stay up there, but I think God allows that for something greater, which maybe we don't understand. But like I touched on it before, your maturity is really, really admirable, Jacob. I can really see a deep both maturity and faith for such a young man. Really, it's a blessing, and God willing that he has a lot of greater things planned for you, in your future. When I heard about that injury, I was like, oh, you know why? It's because the shirts are too tight. You can't wear a flanella. You probably got Safatawa. So, that's a real thing. I know it is. Gus always talks about having the best-in-class medical team and that. I was like, Gus, you need a Lebanese doctor in there to sort Jacob out, because I think it's Safatawa. But thankfully, it's not your back anymore. So
that's all good now.
It's good. God. And you've come in wearing your particular brand. So on top of everything else that you do, you've started a brand with your brother. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
My brothers and I started a brand. It's called Leets, short for athletes. So we kind of, my brother, it's all credit to my brother. My brother Zach always, he wanted to, out of nowhere, he said, I want to start it. And, we got you can be, you promote it, you play. I was like, you know what, it's not a bad idea. It's just something, it's something, kind of a side hustle. It's good, man. And we got these tight shirts. Tight's a bit hard. Some people don't like tight, but we said, dude, but now we're going to soon, hopefully, it's in the working now, drop some oversized tees.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so those will hopefully, we got some socks I gave to all the boys in the team to wear. So
what else do you do? You got the track pants on as well.
Oh yeah, so track, so these are actually.
Do you do hoodies, jackets?
Yeah, so we are. So the trackies and that, they're not out yet. So I'm just wearing them now.
There you go.
We get lots of samples just to try them out. So these are the trackies, but obviously coming into
winter time.
So we got some hoodies where we're sampling. So when it happens, they're out already. So it's good. My credit honestly to my brothers. My sister helps out too. They all help out big time. Like I'm just. I'm just the one who just.
You're doing your part.
Tag on your Instagram.
That's
easy. No worries, bro. Easy. I told him that. I told my brother that. I was like,
You should charge him per post. I'm joking.
I know. But no, it's good, man. It's just something to get my head out of footy for a bit, even though it's so hard to get my mind out of it. But it's good.
It's pretty all-consuming, isn't it? Your life is pretty structured around football, isn't it?
Yeah, man. It's something I struggled with when I was younger. Like my whole life was about footy. Like before games, I wouldn't speak to my family. I wouldn't go dinner with my family just because I was
Wow.
that anxious, man. I was bad.
Wow.
Like now I'm still this anxious, but obviously now we stay at hotels the night before a game, every
Yeah.
game, even home games.
Oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, Ciro loves that, man, and
Nice.
it's been a game changer, to be honest. And he's not
Yeah.
going to change it because we're winning. So
Yeah.
so I remember, yeah. So now I've eased off a bit, but that was a big one. Like you just come home and it's just your mind's all footy, and that's something you mature and you adapt to. Excuse me. Even when I'm with my, missus, I just, like now when I'm with people and like see like my missus, like I just like try and block off footy. Don't speak about footy. Don't like hear it because it just, like I don't want to. It's just, it's in your head all the time, which is good because I'm just so passionate about it, and I feel like too you got to kind of be obsessed with it to be the best person you can. And with that, my days off. At night time, like I'm doing all my recovery stuff at home. Like there's not a time like on my day off, people, you got a day off. Like it's not a day off. Like I go drive. I go see that lady. She treats me a Cronulla. Go do my recovery, ice baths, hot baths. I go, get massage if I can. I just So it's full on, which is
it's the little 1%ers that make you a great athlete, right?
Exactly, and it's part of the job, honestly. So I'm very grateful for it.
Good on you. Well, you're reaping the benefits definitely on the field. You had a great game on Sunday. That was phenomenal. I know from the fantasy stats you got 61, which is very, very good score, especially for your first game back. So keep it up. I often, and I think you're going to relate to this because I'm sure that in your pre-season planning you kind of begin with the end in mind, like what's the goal?
Yeah.
And I often like to ask people, and I want to ask you, imagine yourself towards the end of your life. How do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, just obviously a respectful person, a man of God, following the ways of Jesus. I want people to say, he was a loved man. Like that's probably the number one thing. Just people loved him for who he is, how he presented himself. So I'll probably say that. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely on the right track, Jacob.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us on this latest edition of Into the Deep podcast. I'm sure we'll all be following and praying for the Bulldogs and for you, that you continue having success not only on the field but off the field as well. God bless you, Jacob.
Thank you, man. God bless. Thank you.
And thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you very shortly for our next episode. Thank you.